Hi, I'm Dwayne Morton. As someone who has navigated some of life's most difficult, unlikely, and untimely circumstances, I understand what it feels like to battle those challenges alone. That's why I created Show Up to Heal. This podcast is for the people who feel unheard, unseen, and unloved. This is where you can come and hear true stories and where man can have real conversations. But most importantly, this is a place where we're creating a community so you can feel supported. I want you to feel in this community that you are seen, heard, and loved. And if no one else has told you today, I love you. Welcome to Show Up to Heal. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Show Up to Win presents Show Up to Heal. I'm the host, Dwayne Morton, Mr. Show Up to Win himself, and I have an amazing, extraordinary guest in Big D, Dan Sachkowsky. And this man really allowed me to see the scope of how big these things could get. And I'm so fortunate and blessed that our paths crossed. So I'm going to bring him up, and then I wanted to read his bio. What's up, Big D? I just want to say thank you so much, my man.
Yeah, bro, I appreciate the opportunity.
Yep. And so, before I actually read your bio, I want to share this part with you because you did ask to do a tribute, and I'm more than happy to do that. So let's just go ahead and go into that of dedicating the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we start today, I want to take a moment to just dedicate this episode to a man who sat right, where many of our guests sat, and he had the courage to tell his story. On May 11th, I'm wearing a shirt here. DQ joined us on our podcast, and he shared his struggles with us about depression, his battles, his pains, and what he was carrying internally. And just a week later, DQ tragically took his own life. As we recognize Men's Mental Health Month, I think it's important to remember really that sometimes the strongest looking people are fighting the hardest battles, and we don't understand that. Sometimes the smile, the jokes, the success, the confidence, the I'm fines are just a level of pain that nobody else can see. Men are often taught to stay quiet, tough it out, handle it alone, and keep pushing forward. But the truth is that suffering in silence is costing so many lives. DQ's story is a reminder that mental health is real, depression is real, struggles that many men face behind closed doors are real. So today I want to honor DQ's memory. We honor his courage for speaking up, his hope that by having the conversations that we had can encourage other men to ask for help, to reach out, to be honest about what they're carrying, and to understand that they don't have to fight their battles alone, which is a big thing that men feel that they're in this battle alone. DQ, this episode is dedicated to you, brother. May your story continue to impact lives, as many lives as you've impacted over your lifetime. And may your memory remind us all to check our brothers, listen a little bit deeper, and never assume someone is okay just because they appear to be or they say they are. So rest easy, brother. Man, you're listening to this today. I know you are. And everyone else out there, your struggles are real. Please talk to somebody, a friend, a pastor, a family member, a counselor, someone. Life matters more than you know, not only for you, but for everybody else around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just take a few seconds for respect for Big D Q there. Man, I'm so honored to be able to be a part of that tribute. So I'm gonna read your bio, Big D. Dan Big D Sachkowsky is an entrepreneur, business coach, speaker, podcast host, and author dedicated to helping people become the person they were created to be. After overcoming a difficult upbringing, addiction, the pursuit of money, status, and external validation, along with significant personal and financial adversity, Dan discovered that true success starts with personal responsibility and inner transformation. Having built successful businesses and mentored entrepreneurs across the country, he now teaches leadership, faith, discipline, and business growth through coaching, speaking, content creation, and his podcast. His mission is to help others stop running from their past, break free from limiting identities, and build a life rooted in purpose, freedom, and legacy. It's incredible, my man. So the first question I want to ask you, Big D, is what do you think we're doing correctly in this mental health awareness for man? And then what do you feel like that we could do better? What do we got wrong?
As a population, society as a whole, I
Yes.
think what we're doing is we're creating awareness. A lot of people are starting to realize that this is a big struggle that a lot of people deal with. And, over the years, so many people have had to hide it and hold themselves in the closet because they didn't want, to face the shame, the guilt, and all the things going on in their life. And I think a lot of times in life, we feel that as men, especially, if we're going through something and it's not the identity that we want people to see, or what we express ourselves as, oftentimes we feel like a failure. So I think by publicizing it more, having time dedicated, shows dedicated to what's going on, I think it's important to understand that it's real. It's a situation that many people deal with. I think it's over 80% of men, throughout their lifetime have thought one point in their life to taking their life in one way or another. And that's important. The second thing is I don't think that, you know, though there's awareness about it, I don't think there's enough events about it, enough places for people to show up, or even like, you know, when people deal with addiction or, a suicide awareness, how it's just like, hey, call a number. I just think there could be more of an outreach. I think there could be more of something where people, can channel themselves to, where if they feel like they're in isolation and they don't want to really step into the world just yet as what's going on in their life, there's a quiet place for them to be, but there's also help on the other side.
Yeah, I love it. So one of the things I feel like you've done really well is just have that brotherhood of people. So you're building this community. Um, One thing that I wanted to just ask, because one of the things in your on your flyer is faith driven leader. Can you explain that and explain its role in men's mental health awareness?
Yeah, so I mean, we're all going to go through troubles, and a lot of times, we have this victim mentality, and we also have like this place where we sit, and we just don't realize that every single one of us is going to struggle. The entire Bible talks about struggle, and it talks about leaning on not our understanding and not the things that we know of, but just to have faith and just being able to have the tiniest bit of faith and being able to take and understand what life can be as long as we trust it. You know, Faith is the substance of all things hoped for. So if you hope to have a better life, you hope to change your life, you just need to have a little bit of faith to be able to change it. So many people try to go through life alone. They self sabotage themselves. They sit in this place where they don't know what to do because of the imposter syndrome, because of the situation they're going through. But if I take a situation that I've went through, that I'm currently going through, that you're going through, there's hundreds and hundreds of people who are all dealing with the same thing every single day. But we isolate ourselves in a place where, we don't know what to do. But if we actually open up our Bible, if we actually open up Scripture, it talks about our life. It talks about, the things that are going to happen in our life. It talks about the good. It talks about the bad. And we just have to follow, understand, and believe that there's just something greater on the other side. So that faith is understanding that pushing through, but not pushing through alone, and having faith in someone outside of yourself and leaning on God is going to take you to greater and higher places.
Absolutely. So Big D, with your bio, one thing that really shines, man, and it is what you had to overcome, the addiction, the difficult upbringing. How were you able to put that in perspective and overcome it? And what aspect was the most difficult that you could see, but also where it equipped you for to help other men in this battle for mental health?
So my addiction was a little bit different. I was addicted to steroids because I was a fat kid growing up, and throughout my childhood, my dad used to call me basically Fat Dan and introduce me as Fat Dan, and that was my identity he was creating. So I took myself to the gym. I met some guys in the gym. They told me I could change my life, by injecting steroids. Started injecting steroids, got into the bodybuilding world, and just changed everything about myself. Because I saw a shift. I saw my body changing, and I use that as a vice. Later on down, the road, that turns into a heart attack because of all the stuff I've done over the years. But, not listening to my dad because I didn't trust what he said. Not understanding that love needs to be seen by kids, and if we don't understand what love is and it's not developed as a child, and we're not seeing our parents love each other, we're never going to know how to love somebody else. So all these different behaviors in life that we're conditioned as children, and then we go out there, we start repeating patterns, but we also try to fill voids. So for many years of my life, I tried to fill voids of what didn't happen in my life, what I wanted to happen in my life, chasing validation, chasing being big, chasing success, everything in my life. And there comes a time in your life where you become super self-aware of every single time you chase something, and as soon as you get it, you still feel empty. You kind of want to wonder why. And there comes a point in your life where you either realize or you don't. But when you start pointing your finger at everybody else, everything else, and you start to realize that the common denominator is you, there's got to be a point that you start turning your finger back to you. So we search for so many things. We try to fill so many things by whatever they look like, shiny objects, love, whatever it is. But if we don't love ourselves, if we're not happy with ourselves, if we're not fully surrendered to the life that we deserve for ourselves and accept that we can have something greater, because we put limitations on ourselves. We believe so many things about ourselves, like we don't deserve certain things. But if we look at what God does, God says, hey, you deserve all this. So if we started talking to ourselves the way God thinks about us versus the way we think about ourselves, a lot of things would shift in our mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing was it was you were chasing the external validation, and then when you got those things, then it was like you were looking for the inner validation. And how did you go through that process? What was like? Was it journaling? Was it just reading scripture? Who was the person that like helped you through that at first?
So I went through so many episodes. I feel like God checked me 5 times. And every single time he checked me, I would take another step towards him. Right. So when I was like 19 years old, I got into a motorcycle accident. I crashed like 120 miles an hour. That was like my first check. My second check was 17 to 24. I made a whole bunch of money, built a big company, went bankrupt at 24. That was my second check. And then it just kept going on. Then I always wanted 3 boys. So it was my desires of the world, what I wanted. I always wanted 3 boys. I told God I wanted 3 boys. And my third son passed away, coming into this world. And then I ended up having my daughter. So I was checked by like, hey, you wanted 3 kids, but then he gave me my daughter. So he checked me, but he also blessed me, because a father-daughter love is something that's, it's exceptional. It's undescribable unless you actually live it. And then I get divorced, and that's another check. And then my son doesn't talk to me for 4 years throughout that divorce. That's another check. And then I have a heart attack, and it's another check. So it's like every single time something happens in my life, it's like, hey, bro, like, I keep calling you. Are you ready to come? So I finally had to surrender, and I still do it more and more every day. I'm not perfect. None of us will ever be perfect. We're all going to go out there and do things in our life. And as we go through these episodes, the important factor is growing through these episodes, growing through them. What is this teaching us? What is this doing for us? Too many people hold on to pain. You know, pain and pressure and resilience and resistance, they grow muscles if you allow them. Like when you're in the gym, you need that resistance. You need that pain, you need that pressure for your muscle to grow and develop. So if you go through all these pains in your life and you grow through them and you figure out what's the root of this, like what's this trying to teach me, and you use it for the next level of your life, it's going to change you. Hence my book coming out in November called Falling Your Way Uphill. It talks about using life as failure or whatever you see it as, and every time you fall, you progress up. So, and the cover of a book is pushing a massive boulder up a hill. When that boulder wants to take you down, every time you take a rest, that boulder wants to push you back. But you have to use life's failures to succeed in life. And so many people get stuck. So I bring people back to childlike mentality. When you were a kid, failure wasn't an option. If you wanted to crawl up the stairs, no matter how many things your parents put in front of the stairs, you got up the stairs. When you wanted to walk, you were walking. If you wanted ice cream, you got ice cream. But then all of a sudden, we become adults and we no longer have that resilience anymore. We no longer have that grit anymore. We just kind of step into life and like whatever life gives us, we take. And we're lucky to be alive and all this bullshit that we're taught, and we create our identity based on the perception that other people give us on us being enough for where we are versus, graduating to our highest self.
So my next question is going to be about how you're able to teach leadership, but also you have a very you're aware of the limiting beliefs, the things that a lot of others aren't in entrepreneurship. How how much of that is that you instill in others to realize that, hey, you have to worry about that 0 to 8 in your child range to really overcome things. If you keep that little kid there, like you're going to be struggling, because if that little kid's not happy, that ego part, whatever you're struggling with, he's struggling, and then it's not going to stop until you're able to resolve that. Can you kind of share on that aspect?
Well, I truly think we develop from the age of 7 to 13 because that's when we start, middle school and the high school and all those years. And we start getting a little bit of freedom, but at the same time, we get a lot of things taken back from us. And all the things that happen within those years of 7 to 13, they really shape us and mold us to who we are. But I think the biggest thing to understand is that when you're talking about entrepreneurship, the problem with entrepreneurship is people want to become an entrepreneur for all the wrong reasons. They look at the flash, they look at the houses, they look at the cars. I did it from 17 to 24, bro. I was watching MTV Cribs, and I thought that's what success was. I had the big house, I had the nice cars, I had houses in other countries. Dude, I was living a dream. All my neighbors thought I was a drug dealer. Like, how does this young kid have all this stuff? Because I was chasing fame. And when you chase things, you stay empty. So most people who become an entrepreneur because they want stuff. But the true vision of entrepreneurship and ability to be an entrepreneur is to be able to have freedom, wealth, and be able to execute at your highest level. Wealth is not always money. Wealth is your health. Wealth is your family. Wealth is everything that you live for. Money is a vehicle and a tool to get you there. So if you're serving at your highest levels, you're always going to get paid. But a lot of people don't do that because they just chase money and they chase stuff. So I tell most people who think they're an entrepreneur that they're a wantrepreneur. Like, they haven't went through the cycle yet. Like, you've got to go through the cycle of what you think entrepreneurship truly is. Like, yeah, because you've got a business and you've got a side hustle, or you've got a job and you've got a side hustle, that doesn't consider you an entrepreneur. You're just stuck trying to make changes in your life and you don't know what direction to go because everything looks good on every side. But if you truly were serving and you were becoming an entrepreneur and you were chasing the right thing, which is you fulfilling yourself by fulfilling other people for whatever that was, and you showed up every day and you were a servant, you'd be a true entrepreneur because you would be helping people elevate in any level of their life that you were serving. And you'd always be taken care of. Your family would be good. Your money would be good. Everything would be good. But it's going to take a shift in the way you think. I don't post cars. I don't post houses. I don't post none of that stuff because it's irrelevant to success. That's not what success is. And if you talk to most people who are in business, who work hard, and you say, hey, listen, why do you do it? Most people say, I do it for my family. I do it for my kids. And I check them all the time. I go, you're full of shit. You want to know why I know you're full of shit? Because you go out there, you work your ass off, you work endless hours, you come home late at night, you're frustrated, you're tired, you don't feel good, and your kids get that. And if you truly did it for your kids are getting the tail end of whatever you have left. You're still on your phone at the table, you're still answering calls when you're out, you're not scheduling the time you want for your loved ones, but you're telling everybody that you're doing it for them. That's no way to teach your kids. Our kids will model our behaviors. Our kids will marry or date the spouses that we have. They'll mimic the relationships we have. All the things that we teach them, they're going to go on to do, because our kids don't know the difference between right and wrong. They only see what we do, and that's what they adapt. So it's our job as parents, it's our job as leaders, no matter what we're doing, to set the right example, to know legacy starts with us, and everything that comes after us is based on what we do.
Yeah, that's great answer. The the next question is going to be about you as a podcast host and as a content creator. What do you feel like um what do you feel like your desire to share with others? Like, what, I mean, and I know it's from a servanthood aspect, but also like, what's the responsibility that you feel like you have to share the correct stuff, to share the things, and not put it behind a lockbox, or can't think of the phrase I want to use, but behind the paywall. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, so everyone wants to start a podcast because they think that you get rich doing podcasts. It's the absolute opposite. Podcasts cost you money. And if you have value, you have content that's going to shake people's lives and really change people's lives, you're going to grow an audience. You're going to get respect. You're going to gain respect because you're doing something powerful. But everyone sees podcast hosts as like, oh, I want to start a podcast. Like, it costs a lot of money and a lot of time. You got to hit episode 100, episode 200 before you're even like going to make anything. But it shouldn't be about the money. Again, this is entrepreneurship, right? You're doing it for the money. You might as well just get a job. At the end of the day, I have two different podcasts. I have the Big D podcast, which is, we talk about wealth, freedom, and relentless execution. It's a man's podcast. I talk about men being men again, stop being bitches, show up for your family, show up, in the world of life the way you're supposed to show up, stop being soft. Like, that's what I talk about. And then I have the Intrepidist podcast, where I'm a co-host. Me and my co-host, we're polar opposites, two totally different people. Me, I'm very, very straightforward. He's very analytical. And our podcast, Intrepidus, is the Latin word of fear. So we talk about the inception of business. What did you fear the most throughout your business? What have you feared? What are you fearing every day? What keeps you up at night? Why do we talk about that? Again, it's the imposter syndrome. It's the guy on the other side of the camera, the guy on the other side of the phone watching this episode saying, wow, I didn't realize other people feel the same way. Wow, I'm not alone. And this is the reason why we do what we do. And we shoot our episodes because we want to bring awareness. And we're not doing it for money. We're not doing it for clout. We're doing it for education. And we're trying to educate people the right way based on the values they need to see, not what the world's showing them.
Yeah, so I love the different perspective, and it gives the audience more, but it also gives the perspective of being able to also shift perspective. I think that's another aspect of, we are so blindsided sometimes from just things that are right here, sitting right here, right in front of us. And I definitely want to check out more of that podcast just for that aspect, is being able to see two conflicting views, one analytical, one just straightforward, and just see how that dynamic works, because it actually works a lot in business. You usually have someone that has that drive, and you have somebody who has the analytical mind, and if they can mesh, like, the business does a lot better. The other thing is, like, you're a speaker too, so you're able to get on stages. Podcasting is a stage, but it is also different when people ask you to come and speak live, and you're able to be in part of that community. What's the responsibility that you feel when you get on stage, besides to just give value?
So every time I get on stage, I number one, I ask the Holy Spirit to guide me. Tell me, hey, look, I do have prepared speeches a lot of times for whatever the host wants me to speak on, but I allow myself to be guided based on the audience and based on the need. A lot of speakers go out there and they do it just for the money. I do it for the impact, and I try to leave with something, and I try to help anyone I can. I leave myself available. Speakers will come speak for an hour. As soon as they're done, they'll come in an hour before, speak for an hour. As soon as they're done, they'll leave. I'll spend some time around, answer some questions, do what I got to do to serve the community, because I'm not any more important than the people sitting in those seats. Years and years ago, I was sitting in those seats. Years and years ago, I remember speakers being in front of the room, and they said something that impacted me, but I never had an opportunity to talk to them because they were too important, and they had to get to their car and get out of there. So I said, when I serve, I'm going to serve at a higher level. I want to make sure I'm there. I want to make sure they're aware. And I want to make sure I can give people everything that I can, that I have available for them. And I'm not going to skip out for a paycheck. Because at the end of the day, the value comes from personal relationship and personal touch. Someone's hearing something, feeling something throughout the conversation that you're having in front of the room, and they just want somebody to talk to about it. They just want to open up about it. And if you're not there, they're never going to talk about it again. They might reach out to these guys on DM, on Instagram, or whatever. The likelihood of them getting back to them is probably not going to happen. I just said I was going to just do things a little bit different because I don't dress any different than I did 20 years ago. I don't show up any different than I did 20 years ago. The only difference is I have experience. I tell people, like, people go, well, are you a certified coach? Are you a certified speaker? I go, yeah, I'm certified by experience. If you're certified by a book, that doesn't mean anything. It means you learn something, you got a piece of paper, they acknowledge that you're okay doing it, and you can go out there and do it. But I've owned the shovel, used the shovel, sold the shovel. So I've been down these roads, and I'm only going to speak on things that I have personal experience with.
Yes, I love that. I love that about the shovel. I've never heard that aspect. I mean, I think the other part is you really care. That's the other part. A lot of other people, it's like you said, they're there for a check, but you really can tell you care. And when you go to these places and you allow people to touch, feel, and see how you are and how you act, that's actually brings in even more impact. So we have just a few minutes left, Big D, and so what part of Men's Mental Health Awareness Month is where we can do better on that aspect of bringing up awareness as content creators, and then also like where can they find you, all that good stuff.
Well, I think as content creators, and I love all the chats going on in the chat. It's pretty cool to see. I think as content creators, um, most people should stop doing it for themselves. If you start doing things for other people and doing things for a purpose, and you show up for a different reason, right? So here's something interesting. People who know me from back in the day, they wouldn't listen to me today because of the person I was. But it took all of those things in my life to shift the way I saw life, the way I do life, the way I see life, because I had to go through those episodes. I allowed myself to evolve and to grow through everything in my life. So if you talk to someone who knew me 20 years ago, they'd be like, oh, fuck that guy. But if you talk to somebody who knows me today, they wouldn't know that guy. But the only way they would know that guy is through the things that I speak on today, because you can hear it, see it, and feel it through the heart of mine. So I think it's super important to embrace yourself. And what success should look like for you is success is broken down. I broke this down in some words, right? So S for success is see your goal. Like, what's your goal for the people you're speaking to and people you're trying to impact? U is for understand the obstacle. There's going to be obstacles. You're going to have to overcome things and show people how to do the same. C is create a positive mental picture for people, because if people can visualize something in their life and see that they can be a part of something greater, more than likely they're going to go there. The other C is clear your mind of self-doubt. We walk around with so much self-doubt. Go back to that childlike mentality where you were invincible. When you were a kid, you wanted a monster truck or a pink Corvette, and then all of a sudden, all those dreams went away. Go back to that child. Believe. Doesn't matter. Nothing can get in my way. I can have this. E for success is embrace the challenge. Listen, it's going to be hard to live a life of sadness, or it's going to be hard to live a life of happiness. We have to choose our heart. At the end of the day, we're going to go through pressure. We're going to go through pain, but it's to evolve us. And S is stay on track, right? Stay on track. Know your destination. Something's going to try to take you off the road. Something's going to try and slow you down. You're the one who has to stay focused. And the last S for success is show the world you can do it, because once you show them the belief, then they'll understand that it's possible. So that's what I see for the success of others and what I believe is important for the success of others. And where people can find me, my biggest platform is going to be Instagram. Big Dan Official. I also have YouTube. All my stuff is On my Instagram handle, you'll see it all in there. My profiles, all the other places, but my biggest place is going to be Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and I spend the most of my time. And that's it. Any questions anyone has, they can shoot out to me on Instagram. I'll get back to them. I'll talk to them. I'll give people advice as much as I can, because for me, it's not about the money. It's about the value. You never know whose life you're changing.
Yeah, man, I love it. So Big D, man, I appreciate you for coming on and being part of this 30 for 30 journey with me. And just, I appreciate the people that you got me in touch with and allowed me to get booked on here and just get to know, the other aspect, man, is just, I'm really glad we crossed paths. I feel like there's a lot for me to learn from you. I feel like there's some things, some collaborations that can be, that are possible, podcast swaps, all that kind of fun stuff. But more importantly, I think we're going to really, really impact a lot of people through our friendship. And so, other thing is buy his book. You said August, right? Is that the date, or
It'll be
is
out.
that when it's
It'll be
coming
out
out?
November.
In November. Okay, sorry,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, like, I think that book is just going to be so much packed with wisdom. And so, anyway, this is episode 8. Episode 9 is tomorrow with Connor Heibel. This is Show Up to Win presents Show Up to Heal. I'm Dwayne Morton. See y'all tomorrow. Thanks, man. Still. Thank you for watching another episode of Show Up to Win presents Show Up to Heal. Please like, share, and subscribe. Your support means the world to me. Thank you.